There's a famous story that I saw years ago from the Rebbe, where once the Rebbe had a chavrusa, I think it was in France,
Yeah.
and the person told the Rebbe that if it rains, he's not going to come to the shir.
Yeah.
So the Rebbe said, either way, I'm going to be there. You know the story?
No.
So it rained, and the Rebbe went anyway. There was one Yid that showed up to the shir. This was the Rebbe before he came to America.
Yes. Okay.
So it stopped raining, and then the Yiddilah realized it was a Rav, it was a Chashve Yid. He said, I told the Rebbe that I wouldn't come if it rained, but now I saw it stopped raining. For sure, the Rebbe went. He comes to the shir, and he sees the Rebbe there learning with this one Yid. So the Rebbe says to him, "Oh, Shalom Aleichem. For years, I had a shaila in the Gemara, and I didn't have an answer to it. And here I am sitting with this one Yid, and now I was mechaven to the pshat in the Gemara." So the Rebbe said that sometimes you go to a shir and you're expecting a lot of people to show up, and they don't show up. The Rebbe says, but in Shemayim they realize your tirche, and the schusim are above and beyond what you can imagine. So
yeah, for sure. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. The island's gonna fill up the Chevre coming to Faran Baruch Hashem.
Enough for us. Everything is extra.
I'll just say an interesting part just to get started. Today was the day of the yahrzeit, my father. So somebody came over to me. He tells me that on a day today it snowed a little bit. It snowed a little bit in Brooklyn. I'm not sure where you're in Queens. You got a little flurry today?
Oh yes.
Yes. So he said when it snowed in yeshiva, my father, all of a sudden, he said snow day was a very chashuv day by my father. It was a very geshmaka day. It was a day of energy and chayis. Even though the oilam was a half oilam, because when it snowed, the out of towners couldn't come and they couldn't drive in, v'chulo, and all those that felt that they have a good excuse, can come in yeshiva, but he would give a shir, and the shir he gave was on all about snow. He would start with the story of Hillel HaZaken, the Gemara, where Hillel HaZaken gave it on the top of the dach, and he would speak about a whole inyan in Sheleg, what's a nice in Sheleg at summer, and he spoke Mitzvahs as he spoke. So he spoke all about the snow, and he wrote about Shilas. Are you allowed to write in the snow on Shabbos? Are you allowed to make a snowman on Shabbos? It's all the Shilas that could come up if Shabbos. And he said that a snow day was a geschmack. There would be special treats, and all the shiurim, instead of going to shir, there was a shir klali, and it gave more of an energy. He said he saw by my father a certain geschmack in learning that it wasn't like a chiyuv and an oil, but it was a geschmack. There was something geschmack. So I don't want to take time. I know it's 7 o'clock now. So first of all, Ruchim Abayim to the all the chashuv yidden. First of all, am I heard, Rabbi? Uncle Moshe, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. Whoever will ask everybody. I guess it'll be easier for the Mordechai and myself when when you give a shir and the video is on. So if your personal video, if you're allowed, if you have a quiet room and your video is on, so then it gives more chayis to the Maggid shir because he sees the neshamas, he sees people. So those that could turn on the video, please. I know it's not a chiyuv to come tonight. It's a special thing to come, and if you get a chance to turn on your videos and have a quiet area and space, it will be only adding for the shir. And I'm sure if those that have something that want to add to the Maggid shir, we have Rabbi Hecht. Rabbi Hecht joined us this year in the Leman Yilmudu program. Rabbi Hecht, on his own rights, is a shliach of the Rebbe, a Talmud Chacham and Ben Torah, and a Talmud of my father. And I'm learning more about those details. So we have this chus of utilizing the next 45 minutes of the shir from Rabbi Hecht. And following Rabbi Hecht's shir, we are looking forward, Emret Hashem, for the next year, which is going to be a shir by Rabbi Pape on the inyan of Safras. So we have we'll start with Rabbi Hecht, the inyan of inyan and chinuch, and how to be mechanech our children. With please, b'chaved Rav, please mute yourself, but keep your videos alive. Thank you.
Right. Shalom Aleichem. Thank you, Rabbi Wilhelm. It's not by accident, I gather, that I was asked to speak today because I was a Talmud of Rabbi Wilhelm. So I think I'd like to begin today with sharing some Girsa de Yankasa, some feelings and some thoughts about the Reb Zusha. is the way we refer to him, Rabbi Wilhelm. And after I do that, being that this is a chabura of B'nai Torah, people that participate in shiurim or people that saw the advertisement but understand that this is a chabura of Torah, so I actually prepared today a shir. In other words, I'm a Rav in the shul and I give drashas, but today it's halachas. It's a lot of my own personal experiences as well in the context of halacha and hashkafa in Yadus, but it's a proper shir. So I hope that sometimes halacha could sometimes be a little boring for some people. I hope that we'll keep it interesting and that you'll follow suit. And if anybody at the end has any questions, I'll leave an email address. And by all means, you're welcome to reach into me. So I always say I only knew two Zushas, and I only met one in person. The Zusha that I knew of growing up as a child, of course, was Zusha Valnipoli, the Heilige Reb Zisha. But in high school, I met Reb Zusha Wilhelm, Olvashola. When I was 13 years old in Ganishol, New York, this is Ganishol Parksville, so I was convinced by my counselor at the time to go to Ola Torah Mesifta. He said, there's no other yeshiva, you have to go to Ola Torah. Yiddish was not a language I spoke at the time, and I was adjusting uncomfortably to Ola Torah, to say the least. I was a little boy from Queens. I went to a Olamish yeshiva. My father was a Rav in a Sephardic shul. I grew up in the suburbs, in the Farstills Gardens. And for me, Ola Torah was a absolute trans-directional change for me in the environment and in the language, etc. And coming to the world of Ola Torahniks was not something that I was used to. In 9th grade in Ola Torah, I was exposed to a sefer called Kutter Samayin. In 10th grade, we were taught the Kutter Torah Or. And in 11th grade, we learned Derech Mitzvah. And for me, coming from Olamish Yeshiva, these Chasidus Svarim, we learned Chavis Halvavas back in the old day, we learned Mesil Sishorim, or Tzadikim. And to come to Chasidus for me was an absolute breath of fresh air. I devoured these Svarim. Until today, I live with them and I teach them over and over again to my Talmidim. However, fitting into Ola Torah was something that was a little bit harder for me to do, to adjust. So when I came to Ola Torah, I was accepted by Rabbi Wilhelm. My father, after a few months, and I went back to Rabbi Wilhelm and said, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Ola Torah wasn't the place for me. And Reb Zusha disagreed. Reb Zusha said, look, you're growing in the Yiddishkeit, you're learning Chassidus, you're not really making much trouble in yeshiva. I don't see any reason why you should leave Ola Torah. So I stayed. And each year, I decided and I convinced myself the yeshiva is not for me. And every time we went back to Reb Zusha said, Matchala, there's nothing wrong, you should stay. And my father took his advice, and I took my father's advice, and Reb Zusha's advice, and I stayed in Ola Torah. I have to say that the Mesifta years were the worst years of my life, with all due respect, but it wasn't because of Reb Zusha. Just was a major change in my life, going from the suburb of Queens to the urban city and lifestyle of Crown Heights, and I was having a difficult time to adjust. But I want to share with you 3 incidents I think that stand out about Reb Zusha. I once came to Reb Zusha that there was fighting in the dining room. You see, the yeshiva was down on Troy and Empire, and the dining room was up on Carroll Street. And it was downstairs in a small basement, and we squeezed in a lot of bachrim. And for some reason or another, it's something I wasn't used to back in Yeshiva Or Yisrael in Queens, but there were food fights. So one day I went to Reb Zusha and I told Reb Zusha that there's food fights in the dining room, not something I'm used to. So Reb Zusha said, we're going to have a dining room monitor. And he picked a bacher and he paid him every week to be the dining room monitor. And if bacher would misbehave, they would come to Reb Zusha with a report of the bacher misbehaved. And after a short period of time, the food fighting and the food throwing stopped. This was one thing that stood out in my mind about Reb Zusha. He saw the problem, he addressed it with a solution, and the issue went away. In 9th grade, this was the year of Gimel Tammuz, and everyone had beepers. And I remember thinking to myself how crazy it was. At any given time, the beeper could go off, and off we went to 770, to Mincha, or to see the Rebbe. And with all of those challenges of constantly leaving Ola Torah Mesifta to go to 770, every time we came back, it was as if we never left, right back into Seder, right back into learning. And I believe it had a lot to do with Reb Zusha. The fact that Reb Zusha was a serious mechanech, and Bachrim knew there was no playing around. We're going to the Rebbe, we're going to the Rebbe. After that, we're back to Seder Yeshiva. But in 10th grade, this was already after Gimel Tammuz. So I came to Reb Zusha once, and I said to Reb Zusha, this was before this was already common practice. I said, Reb Zusha, why don't we show videos of the Rebbe in the Mitzvahs? Set aside time each day. We'll watch videos of the Rebbe. And Reb Zusha said, it's a gewaldic idea. So what do you propose? I said, let's get a little video machine. We'll install it on the wall in the Mitzvahs, Troy Avenue. And you'll choose when we should show videos, during Seder, after Seder. Reb Zusha said, it's a great idea. Why don't you go to the Bachim, raise some money, and then I'll take care of the rest. In Kachava, I went, I raised some money. I gave it all to Reb Zusha, and Reb Zusha raised the rest, and he installed a steel box with the video machine. And so it was for many years that's where they showed videos of the Rebbe. So here I was, a little bacher with a chup from Queens, bringing an idea to Reb Zusha, and he was makabel already the second time. So now I'm a big fan. This big Talmud Chacham, this Rosh Yeshiva, Reb Zusha, is listening to me. So first, he's keeping me in yeshiva. I come to complain about the dining room, he listens. I come to him with an idea, he listens. So now I'm starting to like this man all the more so. And then, in my third year Masifta, I remember there was once a bacher, got into a machlokas with one of the rabbis, and the bachrim decided they're going on strike. This was Shir Gimel Masifta. Many of my chaverim will remember this like yesterday. And they were doing it l'shem shemayim to defend this bacher that was in trouble, that they didn't feel that the mechanech at the time was treating him right. All picked ourselves up. We made a strike, and we left yeshiva. We went to botanical gardens. We took group pictures. It was gewaldic. Reb Zusha contacted one of the bachim. I don't know how exactly. Maybe it was the early days of cell phones, or maybe someone made a phone call on a payphone. I'm not sure. The word got back that Zusha said, okay, 4 o'clock, I have to be back in yeshiva. And I remember it was like, Reb Zusha said, we have to be back in yeshiva at 4. The bachim were on strike. Reb Zusha had gesagt. We came back, and Reb Zusha said, you'll come back, we'll address the problem in yeshiva. And we came back, exactly like Reb Zusha said. And Reb Zusha addressed it, and the issue was done. The 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, anytime an issue came up, it was clear to us that Reb Zusha was in control. Sometimes you go to a principal, and this is all in the Geder Chinuch. Sometimes you go to a principal, and the principal doesn't listen to you. Who are you? You're just you're a little yingele, a little bacharel. Was verstehst du, a little bacharel? I'm a person that has decades of experience. But Reb Zusha wasn't like that. He would stop, and he would stroke his alechantin. He would go like this with his beard, and he would listen to you. And then he would address it. That's the way I remember Reb Zusha, like this morning, not even like yesterday. He was calm, he was cool, he was collected. And if he wasn't calm and collected, it was either one two reasons. Either giving a shir kloli with passion. I remember I loved the shir klolim. He gave such beautiful shirim. You could see it prepared with achonis rabbis. And it was an amazing experience. So sometimes a bacher misbehaved for disciplinary reasons, and the bacher was very serious. There were times he had to get up, and berash godol, he would let it out on the bacherim, but it was always with a good reason. It was never out of kas ba'alma, stam anger. It was always with a tremendous good reason why he was stressing and being emphatic about the issue at hand. When I was in Yisrael as a kid, in the early grades, I had a principal. His name was Rabbi Goldstein. I don't remember his first name. Maybe it was Yaakov Goldstein. He was a man about 5'5" with a very red face. All my brothers remember Rabbi Goldstein. Rabbi Goldstein was an old-time principal. He had belts on. All right. So this Rabbi Goldstein was a serious person, but Rabbi Zusha was always calm and collected. There was never ever an issue. You wanted to talk to Rabbi Zusha, he was there for you. You weren't afraid to talk to him. He was always a person that would listen. And you come into his office, he would make you feel comfortable. There's something's bothering you, he could listen. I don't know if this is the way he was with all the bachrim, maybe only because I came from outside of Crown Heights and I didn't have that much experience, so he was trying to be extra nice to me. But I don't necessarily think that was the case. I think he was like that with most of the Talmidim. And this was Reb Zusha. So to me, this is my Reb Zusha. So I didn't know Reb Zusha Vanapoli. So I only have in my life one heilige Reb Zusha. And that was Reb Zusha Olav Shalom Reb Willem. You know, later in the years, I used to see him a lot in Crown Heights on the street. And it was always, he would stop. He would talk to me. Motche, was machst du? How are you? There was nobody else. There was nothing else. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't calling. He wasn't texting. He was focused, listening, always there. And I always have that soft sentiment in my heart. When I think about a mechanech, I think about a proper and a good educator, I always refer back to Reb Zusha. And other good mechanechim in my life, Baruch Hashem, but Reb Zusha was one of those people that left an indelible mark in my heart. And I'm makir toiv to the Rebbeinu Shalom for having such an amazing mechanech in my life for the few short years that I had him, and for the few times, the brief times that we had later on in life. All right, with that akdoma, the Pesach Midvar Malchus of Reb Zusha. So today we're going to learn a little bit about the mitzvah of chinuch. There is a mitzvah in the Torah we all aware of, v'dibartabam. The Torah says, v'shinantam levanecha, you have to teach your children Torah. Person has a child, he has a mitzvah in the Torah, mitzvah d'oraisa, to teach Torah. Open up Sefer Devarim, Perek Vav, Pasuk Zayin. There are other verses, other psukim in the Torah that refer to the concept of chinuch habonim v'abonos, which are not so clear, and it's kedai that everyone should go and do their research on this. For example, ki yishol chabincha is a concept in chinuch. Chanoich lenar al pidarko is a concept in chinuch. V'yagadet olavincha is a concept in chinuch. We all know the pasuk mepi oilim v'yoinkim yisadet ta'ois is a concept in chinuch. And the Gemara, the Shonim, Achronim, Poiskim, they all reflect in each one of these psukim or Rabbi Mordechai Chazal in different ways, reflecting on different chiyuvim, different parts of the mitzvah. So I want to go through some of these memories to see a little bit how we could glean some insight on what our achrayus, what our responsibility is as parents and mechanchim in the context of chinuch. So the mitzvah, of course, the oraisa is v'shinantam levanecha. We say it every day, numerous times a day. V'shinantam levanecha. The Rambam in Mitzvah Yud Aleph, the Rambam says, Lil Moy Torah Ulelamdo. The mitzvah of the father and the Melamed is Lil Moy Torah Ulelamdo, to learn Torah, to teach Torah. How are you going to teach Torah if you don't know Torah? So you have to be Lil Moy Torah to be Melamed Torah. And that's mitzvah's Talmud Torah. A person has to learn Torah, and a person has to teach Torah. But what about teaching a child how to do mitzvahs? The mitzvah we know of, mitzvahs chinuch. I remember when my daughter turned 9 years old, I asked myself the question, what's my chiyuv? What's my obligation as a father to educate my daughter? I only have one bas yechida. And so I started to do research, and it became a passion, the mitzvah of chinuch, not the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, not the mitzvah of shinantam levanecha, but the mitzvah of chinuch. When the child turns a certain age, you have to start to teach them how to do Torah mitzvahs. So when they turn bar and bas mitzvah, they know how to do it properly. So what is that obligation? At that time, I remember turning to some of my older siblings and I said, what is mitzvahs chinuch? What's mitzvahs chinuch? I don't know, send your kids to yeshiva. Let the Rebbe's worry about it. I don't know. Give them svarim, let them learn Torah. What is my achrayus to worry about what mitzvahs chinuch is? And I went from person to person. And the average person that I went to did not even know that there was a separate mitzvah in the Torah of teaching your children how to do mitzvahs. So there is a machloikes hapoiskim. The Alter Rebbe holds, this is the Shner Zalman of Liadi, of course, says that the mitzvah of chinuch is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and that there's no mitzvah in the Torah to actually educate your children. There's a mitzvah to teach them Torah, but there's no mitzvah to teach them how to do mitzvahs. You're going to ask, how's it shayach? Person's going to turn bar and bas mitzvah. How are they going to know how to do the mitzvahs properly? A girl, whatever her mitzvahs are, starting with sneers. A boy starting with davening, night of the first night, tefillin. How's he going to know if you don't teach him how to do mitzvahs, if he doesn't practice? Right? If you can't put a stumbling block before somebody. You have to teach them how to do it. Alter Rebbe talks about this in Simon Vav, section 246, Halacha Aleph, this mitzvah of chinuch. In Svarim, there's a sefer written by Rav in Brooklyn called Sefer Chinuch Yisrael. Over there, he brings the name of the Chayei Adam. He lived at the same time as the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Chaim Gansfried, that the mitzvah is Medivrei Kabbalah. It's also not a mitzvah d'oraisa, that the Chacham and the Nevi'im established this mitzvah to educate your children. So it's an old Messiah, but it's not midoraisa. Other poskim hold there is midoraisa, but the Alter Rebbe doesn't hold. And I started to think, how could it be the Alter Rebbe, the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Talmud Torah, how could it be that it's not a mitzvah deraisa to learn to teach your children how to do mitzvahs? Then I thought about it, and I proposed as a Rav Baldrush a little bit maybe that Adarabba, the Torah tells us to teach your children Torah. V'shinamtem levanecha. I need to tell you that you need to teach your children how to do mitzvahs. Every father, every mechanech understands that if he's going to want the child by the time they turn bar bas mitzvah to know how to do a mitzvah, they're going to have to teach them. So it's ten lechocham yach kamoid. You're going to teach, the Torah is going to tell you, you have to teach them Torah. And the chachamim in every generation, the rabbanon have to tell you how to do that. Each and every single one of us, the fathers, the mothers, the teachers, have to learn how to be mechanech. We need to be the ones to learn the mitzvahs, to teach it to our children. The Torah doesn't have to tell it to us because it's moving me'elov, it's self-understood that this is something that the parent and the melamed, the teacher, has to know how to do in order that the child should grow up properly. So either way, it's a mitzvah deraisa to teach Torah. It's a mitzvah derabanan, according to some, and a mitzvah deraisa to also be mechanech mitzvahs chinuch, to teach the child how to do the mitzvahs. With that said, the question is, what is the age of chinuch? Right? Children develop at different ages. So what is the age of chinuch? So anyone that learns the Rebbe's Torah knows that the Rebbe stressed many times that chinuch, educating a child and exposure to a child, is everything. So preconception, not only when the child is born, a bris, or a girl, a bas mitzvah, the Rebbe said even preconception, the way you conduct yourself in your home, the way you conduct yourself in the bedroom, the things that you think, the things that you say, the things that you do, the food that you eat, the music that you listen to, has an effect on the child. And that is begeder mitzvahs chinuch. How you're going to educate the child is how you expose the child. Shaila is in halacha. There's a great debate, or should we say beautiful discussions amongst the halachic authorities in Torah, in Shonim, Achronim, and Poskim, when the mitzvah chinuch starts. And essentially, the core principle is when the child matures. So for some things, the child matures at 3 years old. Like we know, we don't let a child turn a light on Shabbos after 3 years old. Maybe the child understands entirely Shabbos, maybe they don't. But you start at a very young age. So throughout the halachas of Archaim, you'll see in different places can hold, oh, here it's 5, here it's 7, here it's 9, and so on and so forth, in different mitzvahs. But essentially, 5 or 6 is a fair age that we are mechuyev, midrabanon, according to the Alter Rebbe, and even midoraisa, according to other poskim, to start to be mechanech, to educate your child in teaching them how to do mitzvahs properly. If you want to see some of this inside, you can open up the Mishnah Brura and look up Simen Kuf Chaf Ches 128, Halacha Gimel, and so on. You could also open up the Gemara Masechta Sukkah, Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph. The Gemara over there brings different stories about the context of when a child is obligated. So the age of chinuch is a beautiful conversation, and it's worthy that anyone here and beyond should look up what is the age of chinuch when it comes to each mitzvah. It's an important thought. The next question is, who's obligated? The father or the mother, right? We all know the father goes to yeshiva, the father learns Shulchan Aruch, the father learns Gemara, and the mother takes courses. Maybe the mother goes to seminary, maybe not, right? Depends what environment. If you grew up in a Oilmischer Welt, or if you grew up in a Chassidische Welt, or if you grew up in a Lubavitcher Welt, the exposure of how much learning a girl does. So ultimately, it's up to the father. The father's the one that's lilmoid, so he's the one that's lilamed. Of course, the mother contributes, but is the mother obligated? So majority of poskim, Roiv poskim, hold that chinuch only applies to the father. I'll tell you once again, weighs in, and he says that it applies to the mother as well. That means the mitzvah of chinuch, to mechanech your child, is equally obligatory by the father as by the mother. You can look it up in Siman Shin Mem Gimel 343, both in Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and in the Mishnah Brura, particularly Sif Beis. And over there, it discusses who's obligated. And we'll talk more about this soon, about the obligation of the mother. The Rebbe weighs in on this in a very unique and beautiful way. Okay, so we spoke a little bit about Tukim, a little bit about the mitzvah of Torah, teaching Torah, the mitzvah of chinuch, the age of chinuch, who's obligated. I want to go now into 7 different mitzvahs, very briefly, very, very briefly. And to go through a few points in each one of these categories of halacha to show you certain things that I think if you focus on them, you'll see some beautiful, important details and hadgashot, stresses that are important when it comes to chinuch. You see, a lot of times we do rely on the system. Send our kids to yeshiva and they'll figure it out. For example, I'm a shliach in Queens whole life and other places as well. And, you know, the parents, they're not so well educated. They didn't go to yeshiva themselves. So how are they supposed to educate their child? Make no mistake, in Crown Heights and in other neighborhoods as well, you have plenty of people that are Bali Tshuva. They didn't go to yeshiva, but their children go to yeshiva. There's zoicha that their children should have an education from a very young age, but they're not necessarily exposed. The child comes home, the father doesn't know better. We'll talk a little bit about this, and that's why it's important that we focus that the Rambam says in Mitzvah Aleph, the father has to learn Torah in order that he should be able to answer the child when he comes home or he has a question halacha. The father should know. It's important. So starting with tefillah. So Shulchan Aruch says you can open up the Ramah and Siman Kuf Chav Dalit, Sif Zayin. The Ramah says that a father is obligated to teach a small child to answer Amen. Why? Because the Gemara says that when a child answers Amen, he's already Zoichet Olam Haba. We're not looking for a world to come, but that's what the Shulchan Aruch says, and so that brings the child schar, and it brings the child to a spiritual stature. So you want to teach a child to answer Amen. This Rabbi Goldstein that I told you about that had the straps on the wall also had an amazing practice until today. It warms my heart whenever I reflect on it. Rabbi Goldstein, let's just say I was in first grade and second grade. So the rabbis used to come from Williamsburg mostly, some from Borough Park. They were Chassidish rabbis. And Rabbi Goldstein would wait. So the rabbis didn't come. It's already 9:20. Yeshiva started at 9 o'clock, 9:20, 9:30. So he would start the classes on davening. So they would say Birchas HaShachar. So he would take Kita Aleph and say, okay, daven. When you finish davening, come out. We're going to take you to Kita Beis. Kita Beis is going to say the brachas out loud. And Kita Aleph, you're going to answer Amen. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. And we say, Amen. I could see, I remember Rabbi Goldstein's face was red. Amen. Never left my mind. I don't think there was a day in my life that I didn't think about that image that I have in my mind that Rabbi Goldstein left. The chashivas of answering one bracha Amen. This Meya brachas b'chol yoyim, the Gemara talks about saying 100 brachas every day, very important. And then the Gemara talks about Tisha Amens, Tishim Amens, 90 Amens every day. Just imagine the value of taking a child and telling a child, I'm going to say a bracha out loud, Yingale, answer Amen. Shakol Niyabedvari, say Amen, right? There is a chinuch for a child to daven in a minyan. But min ha'din, a child under bar bas mitzvah, obviously, is not mechuyev to daven with a minyan. So why do we take our children to shul? Mitzvahs chinuch. We want to train a child to get used to davening in shul the way every person should. You notice in yeshivas today, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, why don't we bring them into a minyan, have the whole yeshiva daven with a minyan? Think about it. Because min ha'din, children are not mechuyev to daven with a minyan. But when a parent has a chance, he should take a child to daven with a minyan to see what a minyan looks like. Shabbos, Yom Tif, when yeshiva is off, and so on and so forth. The Rebbe writes, and everyone knows this, that every child should also have a chitas in their room, a chumash tilim and a tanya, pushka in their room. But you know, from a very young age, I wanted to impress upon my daughter the importance of davening. Okay, so she sees me davening at home, she sees me davening in shul, and Chabad, wherever we go. She goes to yeshiva, she davens. But I said, you know what? From a very young age, I bought her siddur with her name on it. Liebele, this is your siddur. You should be mechashiv the siddur. It's very chashiv. It's very important to daven. And this is your siddur. So at home, she has a siddur. In shul, special siddur. She has a mokum kavua in shul, my daughter, from a very young age. And I had a siddur. This is her mokum kavua. This is her siddur kavua. To make her feel chashiv. You understand? It's such a special thing if you could stress to a child the importance of tefillah by giving them their own siddur. Not just in one place, but wherever they're going to go, Meidele, Ziskai, Yingele, there's going to be a siddur waiting for you. It's your siddur. I once saw a shaila in a tshuva in the Paiskim about mezuzah. If a child should put up their own mezuzah in their room. It's a whole discussion in halacha. Right? This is like a briska machloikis. If it's a chi of chavtza or if it's a chi of gaver, is the room chavis ador? Does the room need a mezuzah, or does the person who lives in the room need to have a mezuzah? And if it's chavis gaver, then maybe the child should also have a chelik in putting up their own mezuzah. So when I moved to a new apartment and I put up a new mezuzah, I took my daughter. I said, "Livele, come, we're going to put up the mezuzah together." And we made the bracha together, and we put up the mezuzah together in her room. So she should have a chelik in the mitzvah of her own mezuzah in her room. These are important things when it comes to chinuch. You want to empower a child. You give them a siddur. You make them feel choshev about their siddur. You give them a chumash. You give them a pushka. You're going to fill this up. Remember when we were kids, they used to give us pushkas. It was tajbar. Maybe Rabbi Tanema remembers tajbar. To make a Shabbos Rabban, the blue pushkas. Every yeshiva outside of Kranach was collecting money for tajbar. Right? A kid felt choshev. He doesn't know where it's going, who the kids were, but he was raising money to help other kinderlach. Made him feel choshev, raising money, raffles for their own school. Okay. So children have to be taught also to say brachas before food, before she say, even at the age of 5, or when the children is able to say it. So maybe even at 2 or 3, you could train the child already to start saying brachas. There are different customs, different shittas about this, but even from a very early age, if you want to see one source, you can see the Orech HaShulchan, Chaim Levi Epstein in Siman Reish Tes Vav Sif Gimel. The Aruch HaShulchan brings this discussion about children saying brachas. Children older, 5 or 6, also whatever your custom, whatever your minig is. But essentially, even from a very young age, even if the child wakes up middle of the night, this is something where I see a lot of parents are not makbid. Child wakes up middle of the night, Tati, can I have a drink of water? Yeah, okay. Say Ashiyatza. Wake up in the morning, you'll say Ashiyatza. If you want a child to be empowered, you want to show them the importance of the mitzvah, you're going to want to show them the importance of making a bracha. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Good. All right. Moving on. Going to shul. Some say that bringing a child to shul, if you open up the Shulchan Aruch, is challenging. Children are going to make noise. But ultimately, when is a child going to make noise? If there's no mechanchim in shul, if the parents are not controlling the children, so children are going to make noise. But if we're empowering children, we're going to show the children that shul is under control. There's a Rebbe here, there's a Rav here, there's a rabbi, there's someone that's controlling the shul. So the only time where you look at Shulchan Aruch, it says you shouldn't have children coming to shul if they're making noise, is the chisaron is in us. It's not in the children. Make a room for them. Make a children's program for them. These are important things that we need to think about as mechanchim, as parents. When you're in shul and your child sees you talking, so then don't bring your child to shul. What's the machaya? You're showing him how to talk in shul. Then the child's going to run around. Tati can talk. Why can't I talk? Mommy's going to talk. Why can't I talk? But if a child sees that you're behaving and you're davening and you're looking inside the siddur and you're answering Amen and Baruch Hu Baruch Shemoy and you're saying the brachas properly, then what greater example of chinuch could there be for a child? You could look up the Gemara in Masechtas Chagiga, Daf Gimel. The Gemara talks about this, that during Hakil, the children were brought to Hakil also in order to bring schar to those who brought them. So again, it's on the mechanech, on the father, and on the child. Everyone benefits. The father is not leaving his place in his achrayas to his child, then you're right. If we want to empower our children and we want our children to turn out toiv at best or at worst, we have to do our part to lead by example. You can also look up the Mishnah Brura in Siman Tzaddik Chesed Gimel over there. The Mishnah Brura talks about it. So if we lead and set structure in shul, in places where we daven, surely children should come and they should see what it is to be a dugmachaya, to daven, to look inside the siddur, to answer amen, and to set proper examples in a shul setting. Let's go to Mitzvahs Tzitzis. There's an interesting thing I noticed. I'm just starting with my nephews. A lot of times I come up to my nephews because I have a hiddur tzitzis. I learned this from my father. I always used to watch my father make the tzitziois on his tzitzis. It was a hiddur mitzvah. And now it became a thing. I always look at tzitzis. Even in the Chabad, I'm always checking the tzitzis. My tzitzis also, it's a mitzvah. There's a klal and Torah and halacha. Something that can be checked. Doesn't have a chazaka. That's why we check our tzitzis on our talis every day. That's why we check our tzitzis. Children also. Ingela, did you check your tzitzis today? How many times you see children, mommy washed the tzitzis in the laundry machine and the tzitzis got all entangled? So now, first of all, if there's 8 kosher tzitzis, but for sure they're not separated kedos v'kedim where you could count shmoina tzitzis. So it's important that you should train a child how to count, check your tzitzis, even at a very young age. Igris Moshe in Yeridea and Chele Gimel in Siman Nun Beis, he says that even a child from 9 years old, or Moshe writes, and maybe some even for a younger age, I know in our family it was even at a younger age, for sure in Chabad even younger, was that a child should have tzitzis that are kashir. We all know there's a big machlokes, how much is an amma, 18 to 22 inches, but the tzitzis should be kashir. A child should wear tzitzis that's the proper size that tzitzis needs to be according to halacha, even a young child. If you want to be mechanech them properly and you want to empower them, you want to teach them the chashivas of a mitzvah, hey, you're turning 9. Come, we're going to go to the store, we're going to buy you a new pair of tzitzis that are going to fit you kedos v'kedin according to Shulchan Aruch. Maybe before 9, maybe not, but at least after 9. When you empower children with making sure that they're davening and they're answering amen, and you're showing them the value of these mitzvahs, and they're going to shul, and they're making sure that their tzitzis are kosher, you understand, they're making brachas, they're taking negelavasa to their bed, right? Netilas yadayim. They're polishing their shoes maybe alone. When I was a young age, my father taught us how to polish our shoes, make your bed. My mother wouldn't let us go to school until we made our bed, right? Pack your own school bag. Why does mommy have to do it? Mommy should train the kid like how to pack their school bag. You're a big boy now. You're a big girl now. Teach them how to do it. I remember when I was 9 years old, I grew up with 14 brothers and sisters. I was already doing my own laundry at 9 years old. You understand? Responsibilities. Moving forward. The value of the mitzvah, the chashivas of a mitzvah, has to be impressed upon the child. And when it's impressed upon a child, and the father leads by example in showing the chashivas of every individual mitzvah, has an indelible impact in a way that nothing else could take place of such a amazing leading by example. Same would apply by Kiddush and Havdalah, training children to make sure that they hear Kiddush, and if they're going to have candies, maybe it's Kedai that at the Shabbos party in shul, they should have someone make Kiddush, at least above 9, to be mechanech them, or to say maybe Tati, they're going to give you the candy now, but maybe you should wait till after Kiddush. There are these little dakastik and yanim, little things that we could consider, which may be a greater way to be mechanech a child, not to be too strict, but also to show them the chashivas of a mitzvah. In my house, for example, Motzei Shabbos, I make Havdalah in shul, right? So I make Havdalah in shul, and then we sing with the olam after Havdalah. Now we say v'yita lecha. So a lot of times I come home, so my daughter didn't hear Havdalah from Tati. So I say, do you want Tati to say Havdalah, or do you want to say Havdalah? What? Your daughter's going to say Havdalah? Ho ho! There was never a time that I asked my daughter this question, and she would say, of course I want to make Havdalah. I say, good, let's get the grape juice, right? Let's get the candle, let's get the psalmim. And I would stand there with her, and she would say the brachas, and I would say amen, and she loved it. Till today, my daughter often says Havdalah for herself at home, and she's mechashev it. She loves it. Kavod Shabbos, teaching children about wearing Shabbos begodim, especially for sure in the city, to be mechashev Shabbos begodim. But even in the bungalow colonies, even when they go away in the summer, a child wears big day Shabbos, he feels entirely different. I remember when I was a child, I used to go to East Flappers to my Zayde, Yaakov Yehuda Hecht, Olav Shalom. He used to walk with me to shul, he used to hold my hand. He used to chazam shnayis papeh. Shabbos morning, he used to give us candies. Every Shabbos there was ice cream. Right? This was a man that was dealing with the world's problems, the Rebbe's right-hand man. And what did he worry about? That he should hold my hand when I went to shul. He had 100 eniklach. You understand? But he still made it chashiv, and he made sure never ever did I go to Zaydi shul where he didn't have either Twizzlers, licorice, or a lollipop or something to show the chashivas of he came to shul, you're listening to Kriyas HaTorah, here's a candy. Kavod Shabbos. For him, this was Kavod Shabbos. Wearing big day Shabbos, beautiful food for Shabbos, giving tasks to children to get ready for Shabbos. My father always used to do this, for sure for Pesach, but even for their own Pesach, their own challah, their own matzah dekel, their own kiddush cup, maybe even with their names on it, to show them that it's chashiv. You're worried about them getting carried away with their cell phones and the internet? Are you investing in the mitzvahs that we have in front of us, that Chazal gave us for thousands of years? If we would be osuk in our mitzvahs, there wouldn't be time for all this stuff. Because Tati, hold on, I gotta put my stamp in my svarim. Tati, hold on, I gotta get my siddur. Tati, I gotta make sure my tzitzis are kosher. Tati, I gotta polish my shoes for Shabbos. The Torah gave us so many eights and tovas of how to keep children preoccupied. Bli ayin hara, that the father and the mother and the child have so much available to them if they choose to do so. And then, of course, when it comes to Talmud Torah, it goes without saying, the Gemara Masechta Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yater Samad Aleph, the Gemara says that Reish Lakish says that the world stands on the merit of children's Torah study. Is that famous Mamre. The Gemara over there in Kuf Yater quotes also this concept, the chashivas of Talmud Torah of a child. Did you ever tell a child, go to school because you have to? Or tell a child, you know how chashiv your Torah is in Shemayim? You know how much Hashem loves your Torah? You know how important your Torah is to me, Ingela? And not just your sons, your daughters. Come sit down. You come to Vishinat al-Venecha, you understand. V'dibartabam, you understand. V'pi'oilim, you understand. What about ki yisholcha bimcha? When your son is going to ask you a question, I didn't go to yeshiva. I didn't learn this Gemara. How bad would it be if you sit down and say, you know what, let me see the Gemara you learned in yeshiva. Maybe take a few minutes before your son comes home and say, you know what, maybe it's Kedai look up that Gemara. Maybe it's Kedai look up that Shulchan Aruch. That when the child comes to Yishol Bincha, you'll have an answer for it. You understand the effect that we can have our children. Then when you tell your child, don't be on your phone so much, don't be on the internet so much, they'll listen. Because Tati's a dug mechai in shul, Tati's a dug mechai in davening, Tati's a dug mechai in brachas, Tati's a dug mechai in Shabbos, Tati's a dug mechai in Torah. So now when Tati asks me to do something, how could I not want to do what Tati's asking or Mommy's asking? Because they're the greatest examples. I can't wait to listen to Tati and Mommy because Tati and Mommy are amazing. But if Tati and Mommy don't do what Shulchan Aruch says, like the Rambam would say, Lilmaid, they're Lalamed, but they're not Lilmaid themselves. They're asking everybody to do everything, but they're not doing it themselves. So how can you expect your child to listen? There's a Mordechai Gemara. We have a few more minutes. I'll leave you off with two more thoughts. There's a Mordechai Gemara, and actually I had a Din Torah this week. I'm a dying in the Beis Din and had a Din Torah. So I was looking up the Gemara in Baba Basra, and one of the Gemaras in Baba Basra, Daf Aleph, is a Mordechai little Gemara, and I was, what's this Gemara doing in the middle of this sugya about Hilchos Shchenim? But it's an interesting, the Gemara. The Gemara says, Va'omer le Rav Shmuel bar Shilas. Rav said to Shmuel bar Shilas, Ki mochas liyanuka, when you hit a child, and it's also brought in Shulchan Aruch, when, where, and how, if you're allowed to, b'chlal, the Rebbe brings the Nichos Talmud Torah also. How should you hit him? With the shoelace. With the shoelace. Says the Gemara, with the shoelace, yeah? Why? Mechanech, you have to be mechanech your child, but it doesn't say you have to whip your child. You have to tell your child he did something wrong. Yingele? I used to say, if you could take a child out of the room, wait 5 minutes, see if you'll still hit the child. If you're going to whack that child and the child does something wrong, it has nothing to do with you being mechanech the child. You know what it has to do with? Your anger management issue. If you could take the shoelace out of your shoe, and still by the time the shoelace comes out of your shoe, you're going to hit the child, that shoelace is going to be a good under the shoelace. But if you're going to take the whip, it's going to be a different chinuch. This is our achrayus as parents. You need to be there for your child. And the Gemara continues, and it says, the kari, the loy kari leitzavse. If he behaves in cheder, leave him. If he misbehaves, let him stay anyway. Why? At least he'll be amongst his friends, the Gemara says. This way, the one shita says, because this way his older friends will say, oh, he got to go out of class. If I get in trouble, I'll also get out of class. Others say, no, at least if he'll be with his friends, maybe his friends will have a proper effect on him. Shouldn't kick him out. This is the whole debate of when you kick a child out. The Rebbe writes, of course, that if he's piling on other students, then you kick him out. Otherwise, you don't. But this is the Gemara. The Gemara right here in Baba Basra. The Gemara further says, I doubt most mechanchim even know this Gemara should be a poster in every yeshiva. It's going to lead us into the next class on Safras. A teacher of children, a person who plants vines, a butcher, a person who does a dam, a bloodletter, a town scribe, are considered as being forewarned that if you're going to do something that's going to have irretrievable effect, that later on in life it won't be able to recover from, you're forewarned. It's a perpetual warning by Torah. This is a Gemara that's telling all mechanchim and all parents, we have to be achrei on our children. If we lead our children off, it's arech rayas. If we lead our children on, unbelievable bracha. But if chas v'sholem lehefech, the chrayas is on. Klolo de Milsa the Gemara says, Kol pseida d'loi hodar musra v'oimedu. He's forewarned that the loss is his achrayas. You know, years ago, for my whole life, you learn Archaim. You get older in the teens, you learn Yoreh De'ah. 7, 8 years ago, I had some time in my hands, so I decided, I loved the memory always that said, so I decided I'm going to learn Even Hazard, and I learned Choshen Mishpat. I did it for a few years. I sat and learned alone for many years. And then I decided, you know what, if I already learned halachas, so let me go to a Paisik and let me get Yodin. I went, we got Smicha and Even Hazard, and got Smicha and Yodin. After learning Choshen Mishpat for so many years, I realized something moiridik. Choshen Mishpat is a beer and Archaim. In Archaim, you only learn what you have to do, but you don't learn the consequences. Come Choshen Mishpat, now you're going to realize what happens if a father doesn't mechanech his child. What happens if a husband doesn't treat his wife properly? What happens if I don't do the mitzvahs kedas v'kedin? Choshen Mishpat is a beer and Archaim. Ashreinu mativ chalkeinu, that I was zocher in one lifetime to learn Archaim and Choshen Mishpat. If there's one thing that I could pass on to you, and with this I'll close, a child is a matana min hashamayim. As much as a child is a schus, a child is an achrayas. If we want our children to be kedas v'kedin, azayim b'dima berina yiktzayru, it has to be kedas v'kedin. The Rebbe once said to someone, and I heard this Mashpia recently, sometimes the berina yiktzayru, the benefits don't come right away. Maybe not b'chayav. But sometimes you see a child going off and you wonder, how is it? Why is my child doing the Savera? Why is my child growing up Shaloi Kedas V'Kedin? You have to ask yourself, if I did what I had to do, then it's in the Eibishter's hands. But if we as fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters and parents and children and teachers are not being mechanech our children, then the Zoyrim B'dima, how could you expect the Berina Yiktayrim? And I'll conclude with one final thought. This Shabbos afternoon in Shul, I give a shir always in Shilas and Shuvas. The summertime it's Ashkenazim, in the wintertime it's Svardim. We go to different places. Moshe Feinstein, Adi Yosef, Chaim Alevi, depends on different inyanim. So when I was thinking this Shabbos, Hazorim B'dim B'rinek Tzayru, is a Meirik Zach, we're in the Chodesh Shvat. All the mates Hasoda, a person is a tree of the field. It's an interesting halacha, and you can look it up. The person has a yard, and next to him is another yard, 2 neighbors. Also, so if a person plants a tree, and then over time the roots of the tree go into somebody else's bird, or the branches grow over somebody else's roof, something to that effect. So the halacha is, you come to the neighbor, you say, the neighbor, your branches are growing over my house, going into my gutter. It's getting stuck in my drains. It's not mechuyev to cut the tree. It's not mechuyev to cut the roots. It says the Gemara, and you look it up, section 156. Shulchan Aruch says why? Because it's something that came la'achar zman. When I planted the tree, when the tree was planted in my garden, the branches weren't growing into your yard. The roots weren't going into your yard. They were by me. Now, la'achar zman, the Eibishter created that trees grow. What's on the thumb? If you want to cut it, the Shulchan Aruch says you're entitled to cut it. You're entitled to cut the branches, you're entitled to cut the roots, because it's bothering your field, you can't grow your fruits and vegetables. I said to myself, murdered it. It's mamish the beer in Archaim. Hazorim B'dima is the child, the other mates Asada. When you plant the tree straight, if later on the child doesn't turn out well, the child branches grow over, the roots grow in. No, it's a davar shabala achar zman. It happens. But we have an achrayus to educate the child. Chinuch. Something happens later. The halacha is we're not mechuyev. We know we did our part. That's all that counts. And you'll see the Rebbe writes in Nikas Kodesh in many places, and it's brought in the Sharei Chinuch, that today's day and age it has to be b'derech kiruv. Has to be with love. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is if we don't show our children love, like the Gemara said, Loi timchala ele ba'arkeso demasna, with the shoelace, not with the belt, but with the shoelace. And the Rebbe writes this in it's brought in the Igros Kodesh of the Rebbe, and the Shara Locha Minik, he brings in page Kuf Yud Gimel. The Rebbe says, "V'loi oidel sheish yisroin ba'chinuch v'noshim l'gavei anosh." Woman greater than men. For sure they're mechuyev, according to the Alter Rebbe. Why? Women are softer. Look at your child like the most important balabos. How are you going to look at that child? Hold on, my child's on the phone. I got to call you back. Zast. Hold on, I have a tree to plant. Hold on, I have a garden to tend to. Says the Rebbe, if you want to empower your children, lead by example. If you want to empower your children, show them how much you love them. Show them the shoelace. Don't show them the belt. Show them the davening in shul. Show them the answering of the amens. Show them the chashivas of an amen. Show them the tzitzis. You're going to remember. Show them the small, important things. That's and at this I'll close. Thank you all for sharing with me. I'm zoichet to have this opportunity. I hope that some of the words I shared entered the heart, because surely they came from the heart. And I wish you all atzlocha Rabba. And I thank Rabbi Willem for giving me the schus. I pass the floor into Rabbi Pape.
Amen. Thank you so very much, Rabbi Hecht. And the words are going to be piled because there was such passion and such energy and such chayes with such alumnus. Grace and Yeshikoyach, and Yarech Yama Mamlachte, but your base medrash, and continue giving shurim for the man Yilmudu.